Hey guys, the purpose of this video is to give you some tips to help your research to become more effective, efficient, and purposeful. The 4 tips are to use general search terms, to use quotation marks to search for specific terms or phrases, searching for .gov.org.edu.com websites, and using Control F or Command F depending on what kind of device that you have. The first 3 relate to using Google as a search engine, and the 4th is using a function in your browser on your computer, your device, that is useful for narrowing the information that you're trying to find. So I'm going to go through each one in order, and feel free to pause the video and rewind to certain points if you need to rewatch or catch something that I've said before. So the first one is to use general search terms. So I'm going to go to Google. What I'm going to be looking up is Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of Great Britain during World War II. So let's just say that I want to find out who Winston Churchill is. I don't actually need to type in the whole question. I can just type in a general search term or general search terms of keywords. So I'm just going to type in Winston Churchill. And immediately you can see that I get 94,800,000 results, and it takes me to these, or it shows me these websites. Now, these websites that I've found are not necessarily the best ones to use, but they relate most closely to the search terms that I've put into Google, and they're often the most accessed ones as well. Okay, you can see that in the actual sites that have come up, the words Winston and Churchill have been bolded. That's because Google has gone through its index and just tried to find websites according to the general search terms that you've used. Okay, so let's say I want to now look for something specific terms or phrases. I'll give you 2 examples here. So I'm going to stick with Winston Churchill. Let's say I want to find, in relation to Winston Churchill, I've forgotten the name of one of the speeches that he's made, but I remember a quote from it. I'm going to use this kind of silly example because the quote is the title of the speech itself, but it will prove my point. So I'm going to put in quotation marks, we shall So you can see here that what Google has now found is that exact phrase, we shall, in relation to Winston Churchill, right? We shall, right? So this is really useful when you're trying to find something specific in relation to a more general search term. So I'm going to pick another one, India. Alright, so again, you can see that these are search terms websites that are related to Winston Churchill, but also more specifically, they found websites, Google has found websites with the word India in there as well, specifically India. Okay, so again, really useful if you want to try and find a specific word, phrase, or term. Okay, next one is searching .gov.org.edu or .com websites. .gov websites are government websites. .org means organization, edu means education, and .com means commercial. Each type of website has a specific kind of function or purpose, right? And is also run by particular groups. Why this is useful, searching for different types of websites, is because you can be a bit more purposeful in finding reliable and authoritative sources. So for example, if you are trying to look for something that is more of an official document, a more authoritative kind of document, what you might want to look for is a .gov website. because something released by the government is obviously much more authoritative, much more reliable than, let's say, something that has been released by someone who's just made their own personal website, which would ordinarily be a .com website. Okay. So again, using Winston Churchill, I'm going to keep on going on with these search terms here. Winston Churchill, India. You can see that I have 11,400,000 results, and you can see that the very first website that came up is bbc.com, because BBC is a commercial news outlet. I'm going to type in .gov here. Now, you can see that it's narrowed down the results to 9,610, firstly. So what that means is it's already finding things that are more relevant and more authoritative, probably. And it's the very first website that it comes up is www.nationalarchives.gov.uk. Okay. So National Archives are obviously much more authoritative and reliable than bbc.com, right? Additionally, you could also say that the National Archives are going to take me to more primary sources than a secondary source, which would be bbc.com. So you can see here that what I found is a letter by Churchill to one of the prime ministers at the time, right, in the House of Commons in 1947. Okay, because Churchill was no longer the Prime Minister after World War II. So what I've got here is a source from a really reputable website, a primary source as well. So this is really helpful for me to find original documents. Now, last thing we're going to use is the Command or Control F function. What this is really useful is for finding really specific terms or phrases within a website in and of itself. Okay, sometimes you might come across a website or a document or something that is extremely long, a lot to read, and it can be quite tedious troweling through everything to try and find stuff that's relevant to your research. So what you can do is you can just simply Control F or Command F if you're using a Mac, and you can type in a specific word that you want to find, or a specific word or phrase. So I'm going to type in the word India, and you can see here that there have been 4 instances of the word India coming up, and I can just press enter or return, and it will take me to each one. Okay. So let's say, for example, that this is an extremely long letter, extremely long document. Maybe the first part is just a general greeting and the last part is a conclusion of some sort. Maybe he talks about other things in this letter, but I only really care about the parts that talk about India. So what I'm going to do is just type in India so that it will take me immediately to the places where Churchill actually talks about India, right? Really useful little tip that will help you to get through a lot of content in a much more efficient and effective way. So I hope that was helpful, and once again, if you need to go through anything again yourself, I would suggest that you pause the video and that you rewind to the relevant sections.